Welcome, I'm Raul Lowry Contreras. This is the Contreras Report International Edition for the first few days of April. 25 years ago, you might remember that the beautiful and popular Princess Diana's time was spent ridding the world of landmines, with, I might add, good reason. Every single day, landmines kill and maim people all around the world. It happens mostly in countries currently at peace, and the majority of victims are usually civilians. There are two varieties of landmines, anti-personnel and anti-vehicle mines. Both have brought about great suffering in past decades. Anti-personnel mines are prohibited under the Mine Ban Convention adopted in 1997. Over 150 countries have signed this treaty. Placed under or on the ground, anti-personnel mines can lie dormant for decades until a person or animal triggers the detonating mechanism. They are unable to distinguish between a soldier and a child, indiscriminately killing or wounding civilians, aid workers, peacekeepers, and soldiers alike. Landmines pose a threat to the safety of civilians during conflicts and long afterwards. In 64 countries around the world, there are about 110 million landmines still lodged in the ground, waiting. Last November, as a result of 44 days of war with Armenia, Azerbaijan liberated its occupied territories in and around its Nagorno-Karabakh region. These territories were under Armenia's occupation for nearly 30 years. During these 3 decades, Armenia has planted hundreds of thousands of landmines, especially in the areas formerly populated by the ethnic Azerbaijani population, which were expelled from the occupied territories in the early 1990s. Their number has grown now to over 1 million, who are eagerly waiting for the day to return to their liberated homelands. However, their yearning desire is complicated by the presence of landmines. Estimatedly, an area of 830 million square meters in Karabakh has been contaminated with landmines. For comparison, this is 8 times larger than the area of Paris, France. Military experts from both Azerbaijan and Armenia have described the ground in these areas as being covered with, quote, carpets of landmines. All of these areas need to be demined before 1 million forcibly displaced Azerbaijanis can return home. Landmines can be cleared, but only laboriously and at an enormous expense. Ironically, these weapons that can cost less than $3 each to manufacture can cost up to $1,000 each to clear. Trained workers have to crawl their way along, probing the soil ahead inch by inch. One person can clear only 20 to 50 square meters per day. The demining effort is also made difficult by Armenia's refusal to provide the maps of their minefields, which is considered a serious breach of international humanitarian law. The result is the growing number of Azerbaijanis regularly killed and maimed by landmines. Since the ceasefire of November 10th, 20 citizens of Azerbaijan, including 14 civilians, have been killed as a result of mine explosions. 85 citizens, including 16 civilians, have been seriously injured. The massive mine contamination of these territories also obviously impedes the rehabilitation and reconstruction efforts. Almost every single house of forcibly displaced Azerbaijanis has been looted and destroyed during the 30 years of occupation. With few exceptions, nearly all Azerbaijani villages, towns, and cities have been razed to the ground. They all need to be reconstructed from scratch for the return of their displaced populations. But all this cannot be done without clearing the landmines first. As mentioned, most of the landmines were planted during the 30 years of occupation, particularly along the fortified former front lines near Tartar and Agdam, and in the districts of Fuzuli and Jabrayil. However, evidence shows that as Armenia was withdrawing from occupied territories both during the 44-day war and after the ceasefire, many more landmines were planted. It is not surprising, therefore, that many of the mine explosions took place in areas far away from the former front lines, in districts such as Gubadli, Lachin, and Zangilan, which are on the border with Armenia. Since November, Azerbaijan has been expanding the capacity of the state demining agency. According to reports, Azerbaijan plans to increase the number of specialists to 15,000. However, even with an increased capacity and funding, it might take Azerbaijan alone up to 10 years for the contaminated areas to be cleared, which in turn will prolong the suffering and plight of hundreds of thousands of displaced people. International assistance to Azerbaijan in this regard will be of paramount importance. Thank you. Thank you for being there. Remember to subscribe when we post. You will be notified when we post a new edition. If you'd like to contact me, the address will be on the screen in a moment. Send your comments and questions, and I'll respond. This is the Contreras Report, International Edition. See you next time.